Voyage2Go History. Life is a journey, being part of it is everything. Hello, my name is Jessica. Welcome to episode 4 of my historical travel podcast, Voyage2Go History, where I take you on the most adventurous journeys from the past that continue to shape our view of the world today. In this true story, 17-year-old German Georg Forster travels around the world with his father, a naturalist, in the 18th century aboard a sailing ship under the command of James Cook. Georg's travel narrative is written in the language of the 18th century. To make it more understandable, I have largely translated it into modern language. His knowledge is that of the late 18th century, so I will place some of his statements in context and provide additional information. What happened in the last episode?
In the last episode, the HMS Resolution and Adventure continued their journey, sailing past the Canary Islands, historically known as the Fortunate Isles. The crew marveled at flying fish soaring above the waves, chased by bonitos and dorados. As they crossed the Tropic of Cancer, they battled the tropical heat, mold, and rust, all while experimenting with beer essence to prevent scurvy, with some explosive results. The ships anchored at the Cape Verde Islands, where the crew met local governors and witnessed the harsh realities of colonial rule. They explored the barren landscapes, observed tropical plants and exotic wildlife, and even acquired playful green monkeys. However, the journey took a somber turn with the loss of a kind and beloved carpenter who fell overboard while working. As the ship sailed south, the crew spotted a determined swallow following them far from land, a small yet poignant reminder of resilience amidst the vast ocean.
Friday, August 21st, 1772, west of the coast of Guinea.
Since their departure from Sauerkraut, they had experienced frequent rain. Today, when it rained exceptionally heavily, the captain had tarpaulins and blankets stretched over the entire ship to catch the rainwater. This way, they were able to collect a large amount of water, which was then stored in 7 barrels. Although there was no shortage of water, this fresh supply was welcomed as it could be more generously provided to the sailors. The captain, based on years of experience, had observed that an adequate distribution and consumption of fresh water on long sea voyages greatly contributed to maintaining the crew's health. Today's rain had completely drenched the poor swallow. It therefore settled on the railing at the stern of the ship and allowed itself to be caught patiently. After it had been dried, Georg Forster released it into the helm room as soon as it had recovered, where it immediately went after the flies that were often present there, free from its captivity. During lunch, the windows were opened, and the swallow was set free again. However, at 6 o'clock in the evening, it returned to the helm room and cabin, seemingly convinced that no harm would come to it. After another fly hunt, it flew off again and spent the night on the outside of the ship. Early in the morning it came back into the cabin and had breakfast with the flies. Since it found good shelter there and was little or not disturbed, the poor creature became bolder and eventually ventured through every gun port, window, or other opening into the ship. It spent part of the morning very lively in Mr. Wales's cabin, but afterward it disappeared. It is highly likely that it fell into the hands of a heartless person and was caught to be a treat for a beloved ship cat. In the lonely hours of a monotonous sea voyage, every little incident interests the traveler. So one should not be surprised that such a trivial event as the death of an innocent bird particularly saddened those who had not yet become indifferent. The story of this bird, a common house swallow, clearly shows how individual land birds can be carried far out to sea. It seems that they follow ships when they depart from land, then become unaware as they venture into the open sea, and must stay close to the ship as the only solid mass that the endless expanse of the ocean offers them. This leads to the conclusion that land birds can be found far from land without the need for a coast nearby, a misconception that is often drawn. For example, if two or more ships are sailing together, such a bird may have followed one from land without anyone noticing. Later, it might have come across another ship, where an observant person noticed it and was misled into drawing a false conclusion about the true course of events. Apart from this case, experience shows that not only individual birds, but also entire flocks can be driven far from land by strong storms into the open sea, where they too seek rest on ships. On the 23rd, he saw some whales, ranging from 4.5 to 6 meters in length, swimming north and northwest past the ship. They were thought to be northern right whales, or orcas. 2 days later, he saw fish of the same species, along with some smaller brown fish, which were referred to as jumpers or skipjacks, because they leaped out of the water. The wind had been blowing from the northwest for several days, forcing them to sail southeast, so they were now south of the coast of Guinea. Some sailors who had often traveled across the Atlantic found this noteworthy, and indeed, it was unusual for the wind, although considered very stable and almost unchanging between the tropics, to sometimes deviate from the norm. The sailors considered these as signs of nearby land, but they were now over 100 nautical miles from the nearest coastline, and this opinion had as little foundation as many other old superstitions.
Tuesday, September 1st, 1772, south of the coast of Guinea.
Today they saw various dorados. They also saw a large fish not far from the ship. The Dutch called it zeeduivel, or sea devil, and it seemed to belong to the ray family, but of a new species. This shows that even in the most well-known seas, like the Atlantic, unknown things can still be discovered when those who can distinguish the known from the unknown carry out the necessary investigations. On the third day, they saw many flying fish and caught a bonito. They prepared it right away, but its flesh was drier and tasteless, contrary to expectations. 2 days later, they caught a dorado. However, the fish had no particular value on the table, as its flesh was also dry. Still, it was beautiful to look at, especially when it was butchered. Its skin displayed an incredible mixture of colors that changed constantly while the fish was still alive. In Georg's opinion, this is one of the most impressive spectacles a traveler can witness in the warm waters.
The skin color of a sea bream or dorade can change depending on various factors, such as stress, life stage, or even death. When stressed, such as during capture or transport, the colors of a sea bream may fade or intensify. These fish can also slightly adjust their coloration to blend better with their surroundings, offering protection from predators. During breeding season, some species exhibit color changes to attract mates or assert dominance. Juvenile sea breams often have different coloration compared to adults. After death, the vibrant colors of a sea bream fade and its shine diminishes. Typically recognized for their silvery body and golden or bronze streaks, especially between the eyes, sea breams demonstrate how dynamic and responsive their coloration can be.
Today, they also used a boat to study the current and water temperature at great depth. They measured with a line of 450 meters depth, but found no bottom. The thermometer showed 24 degrees Celsius in the air. Just below the surface of the water, it dropped to 23 degrees Celsius, and at 150 meters depth, it had fallen to 19 degrees Celsius. While they were in the boat, they had the opportunity to examine a type of jellyfish called Medusa pelagica. At noon, they were at 0 degree 52 north latitude.
Wednesday, September 9, 1772, Equator.
Today, they crossed the equator with a light wind. The sailors initiated their comrades who had never crossed it before and did not want to pay the customary fee. Those who underwent the saltwater baptism, once the ceremony was over, changed into fresh clothes. And since this could not happen too often at sea, especially in hot weather, the immersion was more of a healing and refreshing experience than a punishment. Strong drinks were provided for the tips, which boosted the cheerfulness and mood that characterized the sailors. The wind shifted today to the south, gradually turning from south to east and southeast, finally settling into the usual trade winds.
The Equator Baptism is a maritime tradition celebrated when a ship crosses the equator for the first time. It is a playful initiation ceremony for those who have never crossed the equator, often referred to as pollywogs. The event usually features King Neptune, the Roman god of the sea, portrayed by a crew member, and involves theatrical rituals such as mock trials, costumes, and playful pranks. Participants might endure humorous punishments like being doused with water or smeared with food, followed by receiving a certificate or token to commemorate the occasion. Once baptized, they are known as shellbacks or sons of Neptune, signifying their initiation into the seafaring tradition. This light-hearted rite fosters camaraderie and is a cherished part of maritime culture. Sunday, September 27, 1772, 25 degrees south of the equator.
Today they once again checked the current and water temperature, with about the same results as before. The thermometer in the open air registered around 22.5 degrees Celsius. Just below the water surface, it dropped to about 21.1 degrees Celsius, and at a depth of 150 meters, it sank to about 20 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, they also came across a new species of jellyfish today, and at the same time, they had the opportunity to take a closer look at a bird that had been spotted for the past 2 days. It turned out to be the common large storm petrel. They had now reached 25 degrees south latitude, and as they observed that the wind in this area gradually shifted from east to south, from east to north, and finally to northeast, they took the opportunity to steer southward. During their journey within the hot equatorial region, which they were now leaving, they had become so accustomed to the heat that they noticed a significant change in the climate, even though the thermometer showed only about 12 degrees Celsius cooler than before. Georg Forster particularly noticed this difference in the air as he developed a severe cold, toothache, and swollen cheeks. On October 4th, they saw large flocks of the common small storm petrels, with reddish-brown feathers and white tail feathers, in cold weather and clear air. The following day, they also spotted the first albatrosses. On October 11th, the weather was mild and the sea was almost calm, while the previous days had been foggy and stormy. This weather must have made the seabirds very hungry, as they eagerly snatched at the baits on their lines, which were laced with some pork or lamb, and they caught more than 8 birds in a short time. In the evening, they observed a lunar eclipse, which ended at 18 hours 58 minutes and 45 seconds in the afternoon. At that time, they were at a southern latitude of 34 degrees, 45 minutes. The next day, there was no wind, and they enjoyed shooting seabirds from the boat, including a small tern, a large storm petrel, a new species of albatross, and a new storm petrel. They also found some mollusks, including a violet snail that was remarkable for its extremely thin shell. From this very fragile habitat, it could be concluded that it was made for open waters, as it would not have been able to approach a rocky coast without danger. Albatrosses and storm petrels of all kinds were seen daily in these regions. On October 17th, a sudden commotion arose. It was said that one of their men had fallen overboard. They immediately turned the ship to assist him. However, they could not spot anything in the sea, so the roll call was checked, and to their great relief, no one was missing. Their friends aboard the Adventure, whom they visited a few days later, told them that they had guessed the cause of their concern from the maneuver, but had also clearly seen a sea lion, which had been the source of the false alarm.
Monday, October 19, 1772, South Atlantic.
Today the sea was very rough from the south, and a large whale and a 6-meter-long shark swam past the ship. The shark was whitish and had 2 dorsal fins. Since they had been at sea for some time, the captain had been distributing sauerkraut to the crew for several weeks on the days when meat was served, that is, 4 times a week, with each man receiving half a liter each time. As a precaution for the sailors' health, the Admiralty had ordered a large supply of this healthy and tasty vegetable to be taken aboard both ships. The result proved that it is one of the best remedies against scurvy.
Sauerkraut is rich in vitamin C because it is made from cabbage, which naturally contains the vitamin, and the fermentation process helps preserve it. During fermentation, lactic acid bacteria convert sugars in the cabbage into lactic acid, creating an acidic environment that inhibits the breakdown of vitamin C. This ensures the vitamin remains available even after long storage periods. Scurvy is caused by the deficiency of vitamin C, which is essential for collagen synthesis, wound healing, and the maintenance of healthy gums and skin. Without enough vitamin C, the body cannot produce collagen effectively, leading to symptoms like bleeding gums, weakened immunity, and joint pain. In the 18th century, sauerkraut became a vital food for sailors on long voyages. It is high in vitamin C, and long shelf life made it an effective and practical remedy against scurvy. Captain James Cook famously used sauerkraut to keep his crew healthy, demonstrating its importance in maritime history.
On October 24th, since the Adventure was far behind, the captain ordered a boat to be launched, in which various officers and travelers went bird hunting. This gave them the opportunity to study the 2 species of albatrosses, as well as a large black species of storm petrels. They had now been at sea for 9 weeks without seeing land, and the sea voyage was beginning to become tiresome for those among them who were not accustomed to the monotonous life aboard a ship or the constant sameness of the food. Forster and his father would undoubtedly have found this unpleasant if they had not occasionally found something to occupy themselves with and encourage themselves with the hope that many important discoveries in natural history were still waiting for them.
This concludes part 4 of Georg Forster's journey around the world aboard the HMS Resolution under the command of James Cook. I have linked a map of the locations of this episode in the show notes. For those who would like to see the locations of the journey around the world in the present day, I recommend my YouTube channel Voyage2Go. There I visit the places from Georg Forster's travel narrative and try to uncover traces and connections between today and the past. So that was episode 4 of our journey around the world with Georg Forster, Captain Cook, and the Resolution, on which we will continue our travels together in the coming weeks. I hope we can travel a little further together, because life is a journey. Being part of it is everything.